There's some Revelator songs that I'm like, man, we got to bring those back. But we've done so many songs and albums. There's like so much to choose from that I guess we don't think about it all the time.
You need to get you a really good slide player in Nashville, and you guys need to cover a Derek Trucks song.
You know, he told me Susan wrote the song, which he was proud of. He said that with great pride, you know, the way you say nice things about your family.
From the first note with Tedeschi Trucks, they just blow you away.
Yes, we will. I wouldn't argue with anyone that says that could be my favorite song on I Am the Moon.
He, signs my ticket, and I look over at Susan. I say, Susan, would you sign it too? And she goes, oh, heck yeah.
Kevin calls me and was like, hey, man, what are you doing? I was like, nothing. He was like, Derek wants to record some tuba stuff. I said, when do you want to do it? And he was like, let's do it Wednesday.
It's Midnight Harlem. And it caught our attention, man. And we started diving deep, and we're like, okay, we got to see these guys.
What's up? Welcome to the unofficial Tedeschi Trucks podcast. This is episode number 148, and I am Adam Choit. To follow this show, it's at Tedeschi Trucks Podcast on Instagram, and on YouTube, just search Tedeschi Trucks Podcast. If you are watching, you are already there, so please be sure to subscribe, give the show likes, shares, comments. I appreciate all that for sure. I'm at Adam Choit on Instagram and Twitter if you'd like to follow me. Tedeschi Trucks Podcast.com is the website for the show. That will forward to a link tree with all links related to this podcast. AdamChoit.com for all my personal stuff. Enough of that stuff. So today we have a pretty special one with singer, songwriter, piano extraordinaire, multi-instrumentalist, solo artist, and Tedeschi Trucks Band's own Gabe Dixon. Growing up in Nashville in a family of music appreciators. We talk all kinds of highlights from his musical journey from childhood into adulthood, from camp talent shows to playing with Paul McCartney to landing his own record deals to later joining TTB. We cover it all. I did reach out to some fans and past guests of this show to see if they had any questions for Gabe. So thank you guys for those last minute ones I reached out for. But I did my best to weave in some of your guys' questions the best I could. Apologies if I didn't give you credit during the episode for the question or comment, but I definitely appreciate all you guys out there for sure. But let's just get started. Let's dive into this one. Here's Gabe Dixon. Okay, so it's good to see you today, Gabe Dixon. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, man, it means a lot. This one means a lot for sure. You know that, I was saying.
Yeah, well, we've been trying to make it happen for a few months, so I'm glad it's working out.
For sure. Where are you at right now?
I'm in my house in Nashville. I've been here. I grew up in Nashville, but I've been in this house a little over 10 years. So this is where sort of like we call it the music room. It's got like, my piano and keyboards, and I'm sitting in front of a keyboard now, and it's just kind of where it's got a lot of light coming in this big window. So it's a nice place to sit and play music,
It's more inspiring to write in the light. The more light, the more inspiration comes.
I have found that, in general,
What about when you're falling asleep in the dark at night? Do lyrics and
sometimes, sometimes there's no, or like right when I'm getting out of the shower. Usually it's really inconvenient times, but if I'm like getting set up to write, I like to have lots of light and just be able to look out and kind of, I don't know.
I feel you. Well, how are you?
I'm doing well. Yeah, I feel good. I just got back. We finished up a run on the East Coast a few days ago, TTB, and next week we're going to Australia. And so I've got like a little week and a half window to just kind of hang with my kids and my wife and playing a songwriter round tonight in Nashville. I feel good, man. I feel like I'm cruising along.
Great. That's great to hear. We're going to jump around. I know because you're going to say things and they're going to make me trigger other thoughts. But have you been to Australia to perform or visit, or TTB hasn't been to Australia? Or did I miss that? Have they been?
TTB has been to Australia, but it was before I joined the band. So
right.
It might have been 2017 or 2018. So this will be my first time ever going to Australia.
Right. For some reason I don't remember that. Maybe it was I know they've been to Japan at least a couple of times. So maybe it was attached to one of those tours. So this is your first time going to Australia to play, or
in my life. Yeah.
Wow.
I've never set foot on that continent. So
that's exciting.
Super excited, man.
Yeah. Because you probably have, as these cliches go, have been everywhere and at least so many places.
A lot of places. Yeah. Although I was thinking all the places I still want to go, and there were quite a few. I've never set foot on Africa or South America. I maybe it'd be cool to go to China. I don't know, but I've been a lot of other places.
When you think about places you haven't been, do you specifically think about performing there, or is it just more as a human on the planet? Or I'm guessing both, but.
At least as a human, I think it'd be even cooler to perform there. If that brought me there, that's the best. That's great, because I like playing, and maybe tack a couple days on to see some sights or whatever,
Part of the fun is seeing how all these different types of audiences react differently, but also react similarly. Is that part of the fun, seeing the commonalities and like wow, this place was kind of different kind of stuff?
Yeah. It's different everywhere. Certain audiences are more composed. Certain ones are just wild, I don't know. Japan, they're so polite in Japan. We get there and it's just like, I remember last time we were there, we were talking backstage before we went on, and I was like, I wonder when the people are going to get here, because you couldn't hear a peep from the audience. And I realized that we're louder talking backstage than the house is. And like I look out and the house is full, and it's just like people just kind of waiting for the concert, and I'm like, that doesn't happen in America, in the United States, man.
That's hilarious. That's funny. That's why I'm doing this podcast, to get insights like that from you or from fans or anyone who goes to the show, because that's just like a funny thing that I appreciate, that like brings me closer to the experience of like being at every show. Yeah, I listened to whatever recordings came out from Japan, and I remember like the audiences. It's a different experience even listening to the show. Like they kind of clap at different times, not at the wrong times, but just at like different times when you go into a song versus maybe like after the wailing solo. It's like as you guys start into a part of the song or a section.
Yeah,
politely golf clapping even a little bit. It's funny.
Absolutely, yeah.
But great fans.
And you know what they'll do in Japan? They'll treat it like it feels like a classical concert sometimes, because we'll be like holding out and you'll play the last note, and most of the time people start woo, when the songs, when the notes dying out. But Japan, sometimes they'll wait till you like stop the note, and then they'll be like, it's just different,
There's more patience. I think it's like something about patience, because we're almost like Americans, where I feel like we're all, even I know this for a fact, because we're all like, what's coming next? What's coming next? We're all trying to predict the songs as Derek's playing a couple of licks or something like that. So like, yeah, maybe that's better to be a little bit more patient and exist more in the moment. In some ways,
I don't know. It's definitely different. I think it's a reflection of their culture. Everything is very orderly and clean, and everyone is very polite and welcoming and composed. There's a little bit of a facade there, but it's a lovely facade, whereas in the States, we're a little more just casual and, rowdy, and that's cool too. I like both. But it takes getting used to the other way, because, it's fun to get that feedback from the audience, like we do in the States. So, but Europe's pretty cool too. Like they like to clap in Europe, they're like,
clap along.
Clap along. They get rowdy in some places. Netherlands, they're so rowdy. And Germany, they're a little more like cool and, composed. But I don't know, man. Everywhere's different. I'm looking forward to Australia. I have a feeling Australia is going to be a little wild, a little like rowdy as far as the crowds go. So we'll see.
Very cool. It's almost like we should experience different cultures, learn from different cultures, respect each other. It's almost like these are good things. I'm looking at like some stuff from your childhood and you know, dug into that stuff a little bit lately, and like you gravitated to music right away. Your parents were big fans and had a big record collection. I see of all. I listened to an interview you had with Meredith Marks, and you were talking to her about this was like fall of last year, and you're talking to her about like Beatles, Elton John, Joe Cocker. Your parents had like all these records. Did they sing or perform or play any music? Were they inclined or just like fans?
They were just big fans. My mom, she did study piano for like 8 years when she was a kid. None of them did it. Neither one did it professionally, but they sang in church and stuff. Like they would always, every week do that. And I don't know, they always loved music. It's one of the things they bonded over early on when they were in college. And they're just music appreciators, which definitely helped me appreciate it. And they had a lot of great records. They had Joni Mitchell, they had Allman Brothers Band, they had Stevie Ray Vaughan, because my dad, he was in grad school in Houston when I was a little kid in Houston, Texas. And Stevie Ray was touring around that area back in the early 80s, just playing little places, and somebody took him to see them, and they just became big fans. So all of a sudden we had these Stevie Ray Vaughan records and Fabulous Thunderbirds records in the house. And it was just Beatles, huge Beatles collection, just from my mom being a teeny bopper fan, and then them like getting all their records and going full on into the later stuff, Sgt. Pepper and the White Album, and, Let It Be and all that. I mean, and the early Elton stuff was huge. I listened to so much early Elton John and early Paul Simon, like Still Crazy After All These Years. That record was big. The Joe Cocker, the one with they had the Mad Dogs and Englishmen. We have the one with his face on it. Maybe it was the Greatest Hits. I don't know, but a lot of music going on in the house.
That's a great concoction of music. And I can almost see how it's like this perfect storm of like your parents' record collection combined with being in Nashville, which is an eclectic town of music and not just country, which you've spoke to before. And you dug really into the scene. So between the Nashville stuff and your parents' influences and obviously your talent that like really comes out in your work and in your singing and your songwriting, like all these influences, it's hard to really pinpoint like, who your primary, like, that makes sense. That's why, I'm guessing you're a great fit for TTB is because of like such eclectic influences and great influences as well. So you gravitated to piano and you had one in the house. So you said your mom played a little bit. So
yeah, we always had a piano in the house.
Right. And you took lessons and all that, but when do you realize you're good? Like, because you've been at this for so long, you've been professional for God knows for so long. So people must have noticed, said something. So I guess I'm kind of curious, like, when did you like realize, hey, I'm probably better than everyone I know at this, or at least a lot of people, maybe besides my teacher or something like that. And how did like people react to your talent? And how do you deal with real early success, like as a kid?
Well, I do remember my piano teachers always thought I was good, and they were really enthused with me. But I think it was when I was 12 years old. I'd never really played and sang together, like at the same time in front of anybody. And I was at camp, and there was a talent show at the end of camp. And I like one of the songs, I knew 2 songs, maybe 3. I knew Hey Jude by the Beatles. And I knew maybe A Goodbye Yellow Brick Road by Elton John. And I knew Great Balls of Fire by Jerry Lee Lewis. And Great Balls of Fire was like my jam. Like I could play that better than anything else, So I was like, all right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to play Great Balls of Fire for the talent show. And I was so nervous because I was like, I don't know if anybody's going to like this. And I did. And the place just exploded. Like when I was done, they were just like, I didn't understand like what happened. Like people were freaking out. It was just a sweat. And I look on the keys, there's like bits of my skin like on the key and blood from just like doing all these glissandos, you know, like all that kind of stuff. And I'm 12 years old and I'm like, what is happening? And even they're like, all the girls wanted to talk to me, you know, it's just like, I was like, there might be something going on here. You know, maybe I should actually keep trying to play music. And, you know, aside from just loving it, I was like, maybe it's not just me. Maybe other people love it too. So, you know, it just became a part of my motivations and all that. You know,
I think that captures it.
Right. Okay.
That's so cool. Have you told that story a lot before?
Not a lot, no. But it was a big moment for me developing as a musician, you know.
Because up to that point, you were kind of like more or less just playing in an insular world with maybe your parents and some teachers who were going to be super objective and encourage you and not blow smoke up your butt like the general public might. And what I mean, not blow smoke, but like, you know.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it was
that way.
There was actually a lot of support from my family and all that. So, you know, I didn't know if it would translate, like you're saying, to like just random people at camp. And you know, and it's just anytime you take that leap off where you take something you've been loving doing at home or like in private, or whether it's a song or an instrument you're learning or whatever, and you like take that leap to actually presenting it to other people, you know, it takes a lot of courage, and there's a lot of uncertainty there. You're like, I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know. But, so it was gratifying to like get that feedback, and I've never really looked back, I guess.
No, certainly not. And you've played with so many talented artists over the years, of course, TTB and all that. And like I said, I want to jump around. And before, like, I'm not going to forget this, but like, because you've mentioned like the Beatles as a huge influence and your mom, and, you know, being a big part of that, and then recording and playing with Paul McCartney. So I have to ask about like some of the details of that, more just like how it made you like feel. And like, I like to hear about those moments, like, you know, while you were playing your talent show. What's the moment like when you first meet Paul? Does someone like him does a Beatle have an aura? Like Derek has an aura, I think. You could speak to that too. But like Paul McCartney might be a whole nother thing. Is there something to that? And tell me about like
Paul,
how the Paul thing came together.
No, he definitely kind of glows, you know what I mean? Like in a certain way. And I was trying to figure out, is this just because I've been such a fan for so long? Like, you know, when I met him, and I was trying to figure out why I loved everything he was doing so much. And I think it's just because he's great. I think he just has an energy about him and a spirit that is just, you know, compelling. And when I first met, you know, the way this came about is my producer at the time, David Kahn, was producing my band, in the studio where they actually recorded "We Are the World." It's called Jim Henson Studios. It used to be called A&M Studios. And so we were there recording the Gabe Dixon Band on a Rolling Ball album. And David, the producer, was set to record Paul's the next month. And so he asked me, he's like, you know, we don't have a keyboard player. You know, would you like to play keys on the record? You know. So I was like, yeah. And so the next month came around, and he introduced me to Paul when he came in. Paul comes in with like just a t-shirt and like what looked like pajama pants or something, and a little like backpacker guitar on his back. And he's like, hey, you know, and like for like, he's like, hey, David's like, this is Paul, this is Gabe. And Paul's like, Gabriel, you know, I always love that name. And for like 10 minutes, I wasn't sure if I was like capable of going through with this, because it was so overwhelming. It was almost like meeting a cartoon character or something, you know?
Doesn't seem real.
Yeah. And so like, okay, so I've got to be creative with this dude and like help make this record with him. How's this going to happen? But I think I mean, after 10 minutes, I kind of was like, all right, it's going to be okay. I'm a human being, all this stuff. And Paul, I would say he's been basically an icon and like famous and for like, since like the early 60s, basically. So I think he's gotten good at, reminding people that he's just a dude, he's just a guy. And we both like music and we're trying to make some good music, so didn't take long before we were in it and doing some pretty cool stuff.
I mean, and that's part of the appeal a huge part of the appeal, big part of the appeal, besides the music, of course, with you and TTB is like how down to earth you guys are and seem like real human beings. And you're just all about the music. And that's what Paul is about. And being prolific and touring and bringing the music to the people. And I think that's something that's definitely something in common that you guys have. But you recorded with him, but then you decided to focus on your own stuff, and you passed up touring with Paul McCartney. That's a thing that happened? What was
Yeah, not an easy decision at all. I just kind of had to search my intuition on it. And we had a deal with Warner Records, and they were like going to give us like money to go on tour for a couple of years, and we had awesome booking agent, awesome management, and all that stuff. And it was like kind of teed up, and I was like, well, either way, it's going to be great. So like, what makes me kind of come alive the most? And I just felt like playing and singing, my own songs was what I was called to do, more than like being Paul McCartney's, playing his songs and not really fully doing what I do, which is I also sing lead and I play and I write, and so that was a tough call because he was such a great dude. And so was like Abe Laboriel Jr. and Rusty Anderson, who were in the band. It was a good hang, but I just kind of had to do what I felt was right. So that's how that came about. I was like, well, even if it doesn't work out for my like solo thing, like the way I wanted to, at least I will have like given it a go and like done something that made me feel like alive, So.
Yeah, I think that's the perfect approach. And you got to do, and you're getting to do both things. You played with Paul, you met all those people, you built those friendships and contacts, and you got to do your own thing and pursue your own creative endeavors. I want to ask about Billy Joel, because you've mentioned him in other previous interviews, and I can almost like hear some of his styles and influence in your music. Was he a big influence for you growing up too?
I mean, yeah. Billy Joel, I always loved Billy Joel, and he I would say like between Billy and Elton, I was more like headlong into Elton kind of world as far as copying everything he did, but I did the same thing with Billy, really, like his, like Just the Way You Are, and like Always a Woman to Me. And there was a song called it was like Good Night, My Angel, Now It's Time to Dream. That's like
Lullaby. I think it's called Lullaby.
Lullaby, yeah. I used to listen to that one a lot and play that one. So it's hard not to love Billy Joel as a piano player. Like, yeah, he hits the buttons, I got to play with him at Madison Square Garden actually 20 years ago when I was playing with Paul. He came up and played organ on Let It Be, and I played the Wurlitzer electric piano. That was a trip, man. He was a really nice guy, though. Super, just nice to be around for like 4 minutes, on that song.
I you're going.
I didn't really have the. I didn't really have the time to go into like, hey, you've been a huge influence and all this stuff, and all the like stuff I would have said if I had more time. But we just got to kind of like play music together, which is maybe even better. So
I think so. And he's someone being from New York originally, like that I grew up listening to. So to like interview Gabe Dixon on this podcast and have him play a few lines from Lullaby, that's probably going to hit me like 5 hours from now. Like, I'm like, damn, I've personally have come some kind, not full circle. I don't know. It's been a journey and a trip for me, certainly, for sure. Awesome. I want to get into TTB sooner than later, but we can talk more about some highlights from your journey leading up to getting into TTB and all that. Anything that like jumps out at you at your personal career? I know you went to Miami and played music and met a lot of people there, and then went to New York. So it's been like, yeah. So I mean, that's an impossible question to ask, but I'll kind of give you the floor to like almost continue the chronology as I go through.
Yeah, I mean, the short version is, I was in a little teen country band that wasn't like the greatest music, but it really got me involved in the studio and singing and like what's it like to record and stuff like that. And then I got more into just like improvisational music in high school, and I kept up the classical thing the whole time. And I actually went to Miami on a scholarship for classical like keyboard performance, and that's what I worked on there. And that's when I really started getting more into jazz, and because that's a great jazz school. So there are all these insane jazz players there. And I was like, man, I've been missing out, So I just started transcribing, Charlie Parker stuff and like getting into Thelonious Monk and all these people. And I don't know, by the end of school, I was just writing songs and stuff. So I had this gig one summer when I was back home at Tootsie's Orchid Lounge in Nashville, which is like a country bar my grandfather used to hang out at every day. And he got me a gig playing in the back room, and just like for tips. And I started just playing and singing and like writing songs, and put this band together at the end of college in Miami with John O'Ricks, who plays with the Wood Brothers now, and Winston Harrison, who's a bass player, and we were roommates too in Miami. And so we started playing. People really liked it. We moved up to New York and played and got a deal and like did some records over the years and toured. And that's actually the first time I met Derek was back in 2001 or two. I think we were doing like a handful of dates opening for Derek Trucks Band. I think this was before Mike was even in the band. I think maybe right before. You might know better than me, but so I met him briefly, not long at all, but just shook his hand, said, "Hey man, you're my favorite. You're amazing." Because even back then he was my favorite guitar player, on the planet. I was like, well, nobody plays that good. So, and I always, for years after that, I had it in the back of my mind, wouldn't it be cool to collaborate with him somehow, because he's the best, man. But my band kept playing, making records. And then I had my first child in 2009. And so I kind of like took a step back from like the Gabe Dixon band and just tried to focus more on writing and being an independent writer, artist, songwriter, piano player. And I kind of did that for several years, releasing albums, writing for a publisher, song publisher, like 3 to 5 days a week, co-writing with different people in Nashville, pitching songs and all that stuff. And then I got the call at the end of 2018, right as my publishing deal had ended, just to see if I could sub for Kofi Burbridge for a couple months while he got over his heart, had a heart surgery and recovered, and the rest is history. After a couple months, unfortunately, he passed away, and they asked me to stay in the band, and I've been in the band ever since. So,
yeah, I mean, multiple fans have asked about like that time period and like just the transition of playing with the band and being asked to join and all that. Like, What do you remember about like that time? Because it's such a delicate balance from like not wanting to step on toes, and he's such a beloved figure still to this day in TTB circles, and has such a presence in the music and in the music that you've written. And so it's like, how do you balance that, not stepping on any toes, but also trying to find your place, even like going from just filling in to full-time member? How does that all come together? I'll just give you the floor to.
Well, I mean, the whole thing started with me just thinking, all right, well, how can I be like Kofi Burbridge, for 2 months, like, because I mean, I literally listened to 45 songs over the course of a week, and like did a bunch of chord charts and like charted them all out, and just tried to just do basically what he was doing, but obviously in the improvisations parts, I'd be, improvising, but I was just filling in. That's how I looked at it. So I learned all those parts to just kind of be a fill-in until he came back, So it was when he died, it was, the band was in mourning for a long time. But they, I did that was a concern. I was like, I didn't expect us to be in this band, but it's been an evolution since that point to figure out what my role is in the band, and so the more that Derek and Susan and the rest of the band kind of encouraged me by, and they'd come to my like shows. I'd play with my trio at Rockwood, and like they'd come out and tried to make me feel like, man, we really love what you do. So if you feel like you want to express yourself more in this band, we're okay with that. We want that, because I've always been, I love Tedeschi Trucks Band, so I wanted to be the best band that it could be. And so, and what they want, the way that and I think this is testament to Derek and Sue and everybody in the band really, is they want the band to be what it is at the time. Like they don't want people to, they don't want people to like hide their lights, they want people to shine, I mean, that's why we had, this, this last run, we finally got Alicia to sing a song, and she's never really sang a song all the way through on leads. She did that Aretha tune. It sounds so amazing.
It ain't fair.
Yeah, exactly. The Aretha Dwayne Allman thing. And of course she just crushed it, And so I think, yes, it was, I didn't want to it's just my personality. I'm not somebody who comes in, struts into a room and like says, check it out, check me out. Look at me. Look at what I do. Like, I've never been that kind of guy. I'm usually the guy, like I think about like at parties, like at college parties, I always think of this, like, there are the people who walked in like, what's up? Yo, what's going on? And they make this grand entrance, like a big splash, and then I never did that. I always wanted to kind of come in the side door and like talk to my friends, and by the end of the party, everybody liked me, but I was never like the big, like hot shit, like guy, so it's nice that they were like, hey, come on, if you got songs, send them. We want to hear what you do. You can sing lead. You're a great singer. You should sing, so I've appreciated them encouraging me to be like more myself in the band. That's why I'm still in the band, to be honest. I mean, because as you can see, I knew I couldn't do that. I wasn't going to do that with like Paul McCartney, like, so, I have this like this desire to express myself creatively. So if I'm getting to do that, man, I'm happy, and especially when it's with people who are as talented and as everybody in TTB, man, it's just, it's an honor, man. It's really the honor of my life. Like, it keeps me on my toes too. I remember when I first got in the band, And it's what was it then? It was like me and Brandon came in together, and JJ was still on drums, and it was just, I mean, I don't want this to sound like arrogant, but before that time, most of the time when I would play in a group, I felt like I was like maybe the best person playing in the band, And when I got into TTB, I was like, everybody was great. And like, they were like really great. And I was like, oh, I can't slack off here, man. I got to be like, present. I got to let go of my ego and just like make it happen, make it the best that I can be, So hope I'm not blabbing on too much.
No, there's so many places I could take this in, and I don't know. I remember you talking about how like you just like just said like matter of factly how Derek is the best guitar player out there. It's cool to hear, someone as talented as yourself who plays music professionally, like confirm what all the fans have been saying for years and years and years, that he gets his due within our scene, but like beyond that, like it's insane what that dude does. I appreciate you just sharing the journey and all that. And you sang a song with recorded with a song with Susan.
Yes.
In your solo career. That was cool. I was digging into that as well.
Yeah, I was thrilled that she said yes to that. First time I heard her was at Jones Beach when she was opening for the Allman Brothers Band. And my band was actually playing on the side stage, like out where the concessions are. This is probably 2002. And I'd never heard of her before. And I just like walked around the corner because I heard this voice. I finished sound checking and I heard this amazing singing. I walked around and I was like, who is that? It's like blonde, like badass, and I'm like, holy crap, man. That's the real deal. So yeah, I only say that to say I've been fans of the two of them for over 20 years for sure. So it's cool to be playing with them now. I sometimes pinch myself,
Yeah, seems like such a great fit. And beyond, of course, like the music talents all combining, like the personalities. And it's obvious that Derek and Susan and Derek don't just like choose people based on talent alone. They're looking for specific types of people like yourself who don't try too hard and don't step on any toes. And I'm guessing that just the fact that they can see right away the kind of person you are and that you are respectful about everything going on with Kofi, that encouraged them to encourage you to, join the band, ultimately push yourself musically and all that. Did you have any sort of personal relationship with Kofi? Was there any sort of overlap or what was it?
I probably met him very briefly back when my band was opening for him, but I wish I had gotten to like hang with him. They said they were always like at the beginning, they were like, oh, Kofi would have loved you. And in fact, they were actually, I probably shouldn't say that, but I talked to Skip. He was like, they were asking me when he was still around, I jumped in if it was possible to have 13 people in the band, like if we have Gabe and Kofi, because he was such a great flute player too. And, that would have been just amazing, man, to be in a band with him and to like just to get to hang with him and like pick his brain about some of these things that I have learned from him. I mean, I have a lot of respect for him as a musician. Like he is on another plane with his feel and his playing. He was just a genius, man. Like I wish I could have just like sat there and watched him play for a while sometimes, and got to know him. I did have a dream about him after he passed. He came to me in a dream.
Well, there's songs that didn't. Little Martha didn't come to him in a dream, like Jimi Hendrix. Like came to him in a dream, and I think gave him Little Martha or something like that. Like there's been some dreams. Didn't Satisfaction either came to Keith Richards in a dream, or right as he was falling asleep, he recorded or something like that. What was the Kofi dream?
Oh man, he. He came to it was TTB was playing. I can't believe I'm telling you this, but TTB was playing in this like roadhouse, like with like wooden, a lot of wood and like kind of a balcony. It was just like a little club, and they were just playing so great. And somebody came over to Kofi afterwards. He was still playing and stuff, and they were talking to him. They were gathered around, and I said, "Hey, I'm playing. You know, I'm playing now in TTB since you passed." He's like, "Oh yeah, cool. So yeah, you know something about the church?" I was like, "I know. I mean, yeah, I can play some gospel stuff, you know." And he was like, "Yeah, cool. Hey," and they started to say something, and then like a woman passed by him, and he was like, "Oh, hang on, I gotta go, okay?" And he said like, I think I like the scenery in here or something like that, and then he went off to like catering or something.
I have a feeling that was the perfect Kofi dream, and that encapsulated so much in there. And I'm gonna overanalyze that, and as are the fans, and as are some people probably know you and Kofi from your personally. But yeah, that's I like the fact that you called it, or he called it, you know something about church. I think I know what that means. Like, it means like, do you know anything about like TTB? That's how I'm interpreting it. What do you know about this TTB world, this music, this spiritual church that, because I've talked about how much like the spiritual aspect of being at a TTB show, and the what do you call it? What's the release? You get at the catharsis at the end of a show, the spiritual quality, the even like religious experience that does have it. I can't even explain. I've been trying to explain it for 150 episodes or whatever. But that's what the church is, right?
Yeah. And he does have that kind of, sometimes when he plays organ, he has that kind of like gospel-y flavor, you know. The music does, and I've always had that those kind of changes, those have always brought me like satisfaction. They've always brought me like they always felt like they were a deeper kind of harmony. They resonated with me more, like that kind of I guess him like kind of quality, like comes from the old church, that kind of stuff. I think we're on the same page. Music should always be at its best. I think at its best, music is a transcendent experience. Music is it should lift you higher. That's how I feel about it.
I agree.
If we've done that, then we've done something right.
You guys do that more consistently than any band. I think that's the end of my sentence.
I'll take it.
Out there touring, all of that. Where should we go from here? We could dive into some I Am the Moon talk. I can go into some fan questions and things like that. Well, I mean, what about the songwriting process, and even for the song like I Am the Moon? What comes first? The lyrics, the music. I know Susan loves the song. I guess speak to that song and maybe some broader I Am the Moon stuff we can dive into.
I Am the Moon came from reading the epic poem by Nazimi called Layla and Majnun. Mike had such a great, he put the whole record into a framework, like the writing, I should say, into a framework. And that really helped me, because I read through the thing, and there was this one line of, where this one part where I feel like she said, am I the moon and thou the radiant sun? Like she's like pining over this guy, Majnun. And I was like I am the moon. Like that's sort of how she feels throughout most of the whole thing. And so, Derek had said something about, he wanted something that was sort of George Harrison-y on the record. So I just started messing around, and I started the song on guitar, to be honest. And I came up with that progression. And just like started coming up with melodies, man. And I wrote it between, I started on guitar. I worked on some of it on that piano right there. And then had this little Yamaha Reface CP that I kind of messed around with. It took me a few days, to be honest, of just editing and rewriting, and I did a little demo of it, just me and piano and guitar. I didn't know if it was going to be like up their alley, you know. I was just at my house. This was during COVID, you know, and I'm at my house, and people were sending songs. Mike was sending songs, and Falcon, and we were all sending ideas. Derek would send ideas and songs. So I was like, all right, well, I got this, you know. If you don't like it, it's fine, you know, whatever. And Derek wrote back, and he was like, well, you know, my wife and my daughter are like sobbing their eyes out listening to this demo. So I think you've got a winner here. And so, yeah, we ended up recording it, was the title of the whole project. And I think what was weird about that song that I didn't plan is that it talks about Layla and Majnun and that whole story, but it's also kind of reflected COVID in a weird way. You know, it was like, you know, I walked, like, because in the story, Layla's like, I walk these halls, you know, she's like in her castle or whatever, and her dad won't let her see Majnun, and she's kind of locked up basically. And so that's why I wrote, like, I walk these halls like a prisoner, you know, because they want to save me from myself. You know, they tell me stories, you've gone crazy, or, you know, and it's like, because he was like this wild dude, like out in the desert, you know. And I'm like, that was us during COVID. Like, we're like locked up in our houses, you know. Some people are going a little cuckoo, to be honest. Like, they start coming out with some conspiracy theories and some weird shit that's like, what happened to you, man? You know, it's like, and so I look back at that song, and I'm like, you know, that's not a bad one, you know. I think it was a good moment, and I'm happy that they liked it, because that's what I was writing it for.
Very cool. I appreciate you sharing all that. That all means so much to me, and thank you for playing a little bit too. That's super cool to hear all these little snippets and samples. That's great stuff. Yeah, yeah. Wow. What about other songs on the album that jumped out at you as far as the process? You know what I want to say? Yeah. I want to say that, like, it's cool that you guys are able to have your music grounded and sort of centered in the Layla story, but also make it obviously relatable to the present, and the songwriting with all you guys. It's like specific enough and it's universal enough. Where it's like that. I don't know. Is Dylan a big influence? And like, I feel like Dylan, it all comes back to Dylan in a lot of ways. Just like the songwriting style that's like specific, but broad, but open to interpretation. But
yeah, I mean, anytime it's time for me to start writing songs again, I just start listening to a bunch of Bob Dylan. That's kind of the beginning of my process. Not just him, but, you know, like he reorients me to, you know, lyrically, like to like an aesthetic that I like a lot, you know. And another song would be, you know, Soul Sweet Song. I'd been trying to write that song for like a decade. You know, all I had was like, you know, I had the like, let's see you in the morning sun, I hear you on the whispering wind, you know, no use wishing for your sweet return. And I never could come up with the, you know, the last title, and it was totally different music and everything. And it was after my grandmother died, and then, you know, a few years later, I kept trying to write it again with my other grandmother died. I was like, this would be a great song for someone who's passed. And then I started thinking about, and we had this riff, you know, that we came up with in the rehearsal room back in, like, I don't know, 2019 maybe. And it was just, you know, we just did that over and over. We had nothing else. And I was like, that riff is too cool to just leave on the shelves. And no one had written anything for it. So I'm like, I'm going to write this song today, you know. And I was like, this could be about Kofi, you know. This could be about anybody who's passed on. Like this could work for this record, you know, because it was the first record since Kofi passed. And so I just, you know, and so I wrote it with all those feelings, and brought it in, and I had the verse and the chorus, and I just hadn't written a second verse. So we were recording it. We recorded the song before the second verse was written, and it was time to sing something. And so Derek was like, why don't you and Mike just go up in the listening room in the studio and just write that second verse or third verse or whatever it was. So Mike and I wrote the Isn't It a Wonder How Things Change? I was crying, now I'm laughing through the pouring rain. Everything that's old is new again. Can't help but hear the harmony. And then we wrote another chorus that was like the double chorus with different lyrics. Like when the dawn breaks out, the birds all sing. And that was a little thing, a little homage to Kofi, because he, we'd always hear about him when he was a kid. He would play flute with the birds, like out his window. Like he'd be like, so yeah, that's how that song came together.
Wow, I appreciate you sharing all that too. I'm just trying not to cry on the podcast. That's my new goal. First it was like have a great interview, and now it's like just don't cry.
Okay.
No, I could tear up, but the thing is, you don't want to. The thing, I think you could maybe speak to this, but the crying in public thing, I think it's like you can cry. It's okay for guys to cry, but you can't be like sobbing where you can't even speak over some like trivial thing.
Well, I mean, it's you got to do what you got to do. That's okay.
Right.
I'm not worried about it.
Right.
It's all okay.
Yeah, I want to ask about Somehow. I see that on here. This on The Fall. You co-wrote that with Tia Sellers. What do you remember?
Yeah, Tia is somebody I've written with for a long time, and we just happened to write that when I was going to put it on my record, but I sent it to Derek and Sue and Mike and them, and they were like, "Let's record this." So we ended up recording it. Tia is someone I wrote some of my favorite songs with of mine, Further the Sky and a few other ones, and she has been writing songs in Nashville for a long time. She had a huge like country hit in the 90s called I Hope You Dance. It was like a massive country song. And so when I was writing for my 2008 Gabe Dixon Band record, they paired me up with her, and I really liked writing with her. So she's like a regular. Every few years I'll get with her and like try to write some stuff. So somehow I came up with the music idea that first year I was touring with TTB, it just felt like a TTB thing to me. So we just worked it out. Tia writes a lot of lyrics, man. She's really great at lyrics. So I just kind of let her do her thing lyrically when I'm around her. And it's usually very poetic and cool. And actually she got to meet, she and Susan got to meet 2022 out in the Northwest up there, which was cool. I'm glad the two of them got to hang for a minute. Yeah.
Nice. What about Gravity? You wrote that with Oliver Wood, and speak to
Oliver
that a little
Wood.
bit. And I wanted to ask about like your first reaction when you heard some of the things that Derek was doing on those solos when he started to when those parts started to come together, because that's something that sounds even newish for him.
Yeah. I was like, I didn't know you could make those kinds of sounds, but it sounds like screaming, man. Oliver Wood is like, he's probably my favorite songwriter. So he anytime I get to write with him, it's cool. But it was another thing. It was like we were actually trying to write something for the TTB thing, and originally we were trying to write something for Susan to sing, but it just turned into what it was, and Susan didn't feel as comfortable singing it as I did, so Oliver and I got together at the Wood Brothers studio and wrote this tune, and it was like one of the first songs we recorded for the I'm the Moon project. Because I think it's pretty straightforward. It's just one of those like slap it. It's just one of those like it just comes right out. And Falcon had a cool thought to do like a little piano. He was like do a piano breakdown, and so we did. It felt like after we'd run through it like once or twice, it was like let's just record it, And so that's kind of the version you hear on the record. And Derek just, I don't know where that came from, man. Like I just assumed that it was something he'd done before that I'd just never heard, but I don't know. I asked him how he did it, he's like, how do you do that? He's like, oh, you just kind of like play two strings and one's a little out of tune. And you're like, I'm like, well, whatever the hell it is, like, it was cool as fuck. Please do that again.
Right. Some fans and people have explained it, and some people, and I think some YouTube guitar dudes. And I'm just like more like you. I'm like, whatever it is, sounds amazing. Just keep doing. And I do think the song, like, definitely, like, of course, every song sounds like exactly what it should be and was meant to be from start to finish. And I don't see all the labor behind it, but Gravity definitely sounds like a Gabe vocal song. And I think also from like, lyrically it suits it from like a male point of view, speaking about and to a woman. So obviously it's and which fits the album too, and the themes.
Well, that's good. Yeah, it was. I guess if it had to be one, it would be from like the male perspective. We knew that pretty quickly after we started writing it. Because it was like, well, she's not going to sing this, but maybe I could put it on my record, but then it turned out to be on the TTB record, which was awesome, even better, so
good stuff. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I definitely appreciate it. Do you ever think of, I'm going to get into some of the fan questions here, but what do you think about, would you ever bring any of the I Am the Moon songs on, play them with your band or at your solo shows, especially the ones that you had a bigger hand in writing? Do you think I Am the Moon songs will appear in your, outside TTB live performances or anything?
I've started to do that just a little bit. I wanted to kind of let this album have its cycle, but as we start thinking about another record and that sort of thing. And I've started to, like, I did a little house concert the other day and somebody requested Soul Sweet Song. So I played that one. I did I Am the Moon solo at Bluebird on the Mountain a few months ago in Nashville. And I'll probably, I don't know. I just I feel it out, and I want to, I just wanted to let it be just TTB song for a while. But since the record's been out for a year and a half or whatever now, so I kind of started playing them more, if that answers your question.
Yeah, that's probably why the band loves you, because you're so respectful of the process and the music and all that. And they probably didn't have to even ask you that. And even if they did, it's not the end of the world. But like, you probably just kind of like knew that as an experienced musician and just having etiquette, I guess. And it's not that would be the end of the world, but just like those little details, like you guys.
I don't think it would have been a problem, but it felt natural to reserve them for the TTB set,
Yeah, that makes sense. You sing a lot about trains, especially in your solo work. I feel like that, like traveling in trains, that comes up a lot of times. Like, is there something to that? I feel like just because of the road, and it's like it's like a vortex, a meeting point of like, I'm here and then I'm gone. It's very, traveling is dramatic, saying these goodbyes and hellos. Is it?
Yeah,
trains and traveling.
It's a lot of it's all the traveling I do probably, but also I don't know. It's a nice metaphor to me. Traveling is a nice metaphor just for life, like getting home or leaving home. It's a metaphor for groundedness and finding your, like, what's true and what's meaningful and important in life. And I don't know, I like it.
I know, it's great. I love your songwriting, the vivid storytelling and the images and the themes of love and heartbreak and professional versus the road and family and friendship and all these things. How do you balance the road and family and all that? That must be a challenge.
Sometimes sure. It's a challenge if we're out for a long time and I haven't seen my boys and Amanda. It's we figure it out, but they know it's my calling, and so they take trips out. Last summer, Amanda came out for a week on the road. It's the longest she's ever been like on the road with me. And she learned that she can't sleep a wink on a tour bus, unfortunately. But she had a good time. It was nice. She got to let loose a little bit. I think it just makes me want to be as present as I can when I'm home, like for them, because it's my chance, So, I balance everything. It's all a balancing act for me,
So it's a work in progress. That life is like a journey, and like it all comes back to those traveling journey metaphors and all that. Stacy Feldman, past guest of the show, she says you're a silver fox. She wanted me to pass that along to you.
Yeah.
Sweet. So I want to do that for her. She also asked, I think about, and people have asked about like maintaining your voice. What do you do as far as like on the road, man. Lemon tea, when honey, all that stuff, or what?
Sleep and hydration. And I've started warming up lately, like, because I kind of lost my voice toward the end of the Wheels of Soul tour when my band was opening up and I was playing with TTB. I just wasn't treating my voice well. And so I found this, my good longtime friend, Maureen Murphy, amazing singer. She's given me a couple of vocal coaching sessions and all these warm-ups. So my voice, I think, has gotten stronger just from all that. And, trying to remember, what I've done lately? I've started chewing gum on stage, which is kind of weird. Most singers would tell you not to do that, I guess, but it just like gets everything nice and like moist and like singable. And hopefully one day I won't like choke on my gum and drop dead on stage, but it's working for me so far.
It's also good. I mean, this is a whole nother rabbit hole, but from what I understand, chewing gum is actually good for you. It builds your tongue strength and jaw strength and swallowing like muscles and all that. It's a lot of things that we were taught as kids, I find to be were wrong or the opposite as adults. Like, so go down that rabbit hole. The gum chewing is actually good for people.
I will do that.
Not the sugar per se, but the physical aspect of
Alicia and I were just talking about how we want to find some with like some like all natural gum that's like pseudo healthy. That's our next project, our next gum project.
Yeah, no, I'll get the fans on that too.
If you got any idea.
Yeah, for sure. Mariah wants to know the early days, and a fan actually came. I forget who it was at the time. I had spoke to a gig that you played where I'm sure there's been a million gigs where it's just like you didn't get paid or people didn't show up or all these kinds of crazy things over the years. What keeps you going in those days where things like maybe seem like they're super hard?
Oof. I mean, I just think I just have a belief that I'm here to have put on the earth to make music. So, if times when I've struggled to play to make money at music or whatever it was, I just look at it as, well, maybe this is just the universe's way of getting me to try to make more music. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it's just what I'm here to do. A long time ago, it was my 20s. I was parking cars. I was a valet for a couple of winters. And my grandmother, who was always a big supporter of mine when she was alive, she asked me how I was doing and, what's going on, Gabe? How's it going? I was like, oh, well, and I started talking about all these car parking gigs I was doing. Nothing wrong with car parking, it was fine. But she listened really patiently and she was like, that's nice. What about the music? And I was like, well, I don't know, it's not really much going on. I haven't really been doing much. And she was like, you have a gift. You need to be using your gift. Like, you were put here to make music. And so I want you to make music. And I said, well, I want to make music too. And she's like, well, you need to make music. So it wasn't long after that, I doubled down on the music thing and I quit the other job. And, I've decided that if I'm making music and I'm getting by, I'm successful. That's how I feel. So
for sure. Yeah. That inner voice, but sometimes those external voices like can put us over the top. Everyone needs cheerleaders, I think.
It's nice
in some capacity.
It's nice to have somebody in your corner who's like believes in you, because it's not always easy to believe in yourself, so it like reaffirmed something I wanted to be true, and I thought was true. So Yeah.
We kind of spoke to this a little bit, but John Davis is asking, what was more of an indicator of your professional arrival? Was it when you played with Paul, or was it when you got to sort of pass on the tour? Like, which was it? It's more of a benchmark for you.
Between those two, I mean, playing with them, but I think more of the professional arrival was just my band getting signed to Warner Brothers Records the year before, before that, and like doing the record for a major label. But I mean, you got to understand, like, I played with Paul, and then like a couple years later, like a few years later, my band had been dropped from my label, and I was like parking cars for a living and like trying to pick up gigs wherever I could in Nashville, So it's not like, I don't think there's ever this point at which you've arrived. Like, you're always like arriving, like I had arrived in 2001 and 2, and then I disarrived for a few years, and then I arrived again in 2005, 6, and when I had a gig and I made another record and with my band, and then it was like a lull, and it was like, what am I gonna make it? But it's like, you're making it, and then you're not making it, and then you're just like, after a while, it just becomes it's just what you do. You just persevere, you just persist. That's how I feel about it anyway.
You have to just, just speaking generally, one has to just, I guess, whatever you're doing, just love the process as much as you can, and just appreciate whatever moments you have that are, out of the ordinary, be it the gigs, be it the financial rewards, be it whatever it is, like, just like appreciate whatever that comes with it in any walk of life and field. Who's your best friend in the band?
Best friend? Everybody's so
different,
man. Everybody's so different. I can't say. I have bonds with everyone in the band, and they're all different. I don't think I have a best friend.
I feel like I'm asking like the social media type questions, but who if you were gonna move, who would you feel the least awkward about asking to help move?
Man, I feel like I feel like any of them would help me out when the rubber met the road. But Falcon comes to mind. He's hooked me up. He's helped me out with some stuff in the past. At the same time, Sue would help. Derek would help. I remember when I first joined the band, I'm like, oh, I get to play with Derek Trucks and Susan Tedeschi, and we're like it's like the first week, and we pull into a city in front of a hotel, and we're gonna get our bags out and everything, and Derek's literally down in the bay, in the baggage bay, like pulling out my suitcase for me, and I'm like, okay, this is a different kind of band than I've been in before, like this is like more like egalitarian, we help each other out kind of thing. It was symbolic to me. I'm sure Mike would help me. I don't know. It's just everybody would help. Mark, I probably wouldn't be able to find Mark Rivers, but if I could find him, he would help me out.
What about like obviously you have family and close friends outside of the band, but if you had like a real like serious personal problem, like some shit's going down, who are you gonna go to in the band for the heart to heart or the serious talk? I guess it depends what it is, but
depends on what it is. Again, Falcon's always been there for me. He's the reason I'm in the band. He's the one who made the calls when Kofi was sick. He called around to different folks. He asked Oliver Wood his advice. He asked his brother-in-law, Ted Pecchio. He asked David Ryan Harris, I think. They just called around who should be in the band, and a bunch of them said me, and so I don't know. Falcon's, he's good. But, wait, what was the question?
Who would you go to for, I guess, personal advice, serious advice, or whatever in the band?
I don't know. Alicia, Mike, Falcon. Depending on what it is, Derek, Sue, Brandon. I think that Brandon and Isaac have a lot of wisdom, but they're like several years younger than me, so it's hard to imagine going to like younger people for advice.
That's a good point.
But with certain things, I'm sure they'd be very helpful. I've asked advice from Kebby. I've asked advice from Mark Rivers, Ephraim. I mean, yeah, I'm very diplomatic in my answer, but really any of them.
No, but I could see you answering organically as like you think about your past and different things that have come up, whether it's personal, professional, just where do I go, logistical, whatever it is, you know, like it seems like such a symbiotic, if that's the right word for like what this band is. Like everyone has enough time to shine and you guys work together as a team, but also shine individually and have your own ideas that you all bring to the table. Such an amazing band, and I'm so blessed to just be a fan and a small part of this world in some capacity and connect with so many people like yourself in the band, out of the band, crew and fans. It's like just a fun thing for me. And I want to ask you, because I'll get you out of here momentarily, but the fan base and the fans, like, have you noticed anything different in terms of like like TTB fans versus like fans of like other artists out there? Like, I don't know, what stands out to you about us?
Well, I mean, it feels like a community. I mean, it's the first band I've been in where people really are coming to multiple shows, and that's like, there's a couple people saw in the front row feel like they've been at almost every single show since the start of the year, which is amazing. And it kind of honestly, like, it's part of the reason I think when, because Derek puts together the set list most of the time with some input, but he's really doing it, I think it's part of the reason we've been changing it up so much, like we've played, I think he said like almost 100 different songs since the beginning of the year in the shows. And part of it is like, well, these people are coming over and over. And it's like, let's give them something different, helps us keeps us on our toes too, always. And we can, it's like we know these songs, we love these songs, like playing Van Morrison songs that we've never played, or other things like doing Bruce Springsteen or whatever. Like it's a great exercise, and it makes it more interesting for us too. So I think, to answer your question, the community and the loyalty is really unmatched with any group I've ever been in. So,
well, it's all because you guys, and because large part because of that large catalog that Derek is forcing upon you guys. He makes you guys work, huh?
Yeah, I mean, we do. Oh, absolutely. But we're glad of it, and we'll put together we put together like a list of covers we want to do. Like we're trying to think more about it this year, of just trying to throw new things in. Like one night we were out and I was like, hey, we should try Into the Mystic. Remember we did it with Warren, and I was singing it for Warren as a stand-in, before Warren showed up to rehearsal, and Derek was like, well, we should do this in our regular shows. And so I reminded him of that, and we'll put together playlists before the tour sometimes, like on Spotify or whatever, and just like with ideas for covers, so always trying to keep it fresh.
Good stuff. Kathleen Rogal wants to know if I'm saying I hope I'm saying her last name correctly. Big fan too. She wants to know if there what's coming next hasn't been announced, like even like beyond this year, new songs, new tours, new albums for you, for the band, like what's coming down the pike that we don't know about, that you could hint at even?
I don't know. I mean,
too far ahead.
We're definitely, I mean, I went down to the farm in January, I think it was, and we did like a few days of writing. But so we're kind of starting to get in that mode of maybe trying to think about another record and that sort of thing. But we got a lot of tour dates this year, so I think it's going to be touring and writing, and we'll see where that ends up. There's going to be another record at some point.
Sweet.
So it's just the early stages.
Yeah, I kind of figured next year for a release, most likely for an album.
Yeah, there's certainly not going to be a release this year.
Right. Touring, and you guys are bringing all these covers into the fold and all these songs it's like there's such a wealth of material that you guys can't even cover it all. Just even the original material from all the albums, and every fan wants to suggest what you guys are not playing. How come you guys aren't playing this? How come like people? That's people's favorite conversation is what's coming next in a set. What you guys are gonna play? Where do you guys get make the decisions to what songs get played and all that. But thank you so much for the time. I appreciate it. Yeah. I feel like we covered a lot. I appreciate you playing as well. Anything else you want to talk about or mention that's worth sharing, feel free to do that. Feel free to plug, promote your websites, all that stuff.
You know, I've started to take this, since I'm on the road so much with TTB, I've started to just, like, I used to go out and just do my own tours all the time. And like, what I'm doing instead now is I release songs every like 6 weeks or so. Like some of them are instrumentals, like just piano stuff. I have this new kind of like project called Piano Spells, where it's just instrumental piano stuff. And I'm releasing a couple other songs from an album I made in 2016 called Turns to Gold. The songs never ended up on the record. So I'm releasing those over the next few months too. So I'm always releasing new music, just digitally. So you can find it, just Gabe Dixon or Gabe Dixon Piano Spells, like on all the streaming stuff. It helps keep the spark going of just creativity and in everything to be releasing new music. So
that's super cool and appreciate it, and so prolific. You, the band, TTB, and like even a lot of the influences that we talked, like the Bob Dylan's, like he's still touring and releasing music. I have such an immense respect for people that just like keep playing. Not that everyone can or wants to or needs to, but like when you see people just keep going purely for the love of it or primarily from the love of it, that's great to see. I think that's about all I got for today. Cool. I can hang up in a second and whatnot, but you don't have to leave the call a second. We could wrap up too. But thank you again. This means a lot. So cool. I think people are going to appreciate this one.
Thanks for having me, man.
Oh, you got it. Take care. So there you go. Episode 148 with Gabe Dixon. I can't tell you how much fun that was and how special recording that episode with Gabe is to me. I'm just proud of myself for not crying at various points during the episode, especially when he goes to play. The guy hits one note, and I'm just over here, trying to hold it together. But again, thank you so much, Gabe. Truly, truly means a lot. Hope everyone's doing okay out there. Please check out @Tedeschi Trucks Podcast on Instagram. Please subscribe on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on, iTunes, Spotify, etc., etc. Positive reviews on Apple Podcasts are appreciated. Please subscribe on YouTube. I'm at Adam Choit on Instagram and Twitter. If you'd like to follow me, adamchoit.com for all my personal stuff. Tedeschi Trucks Podcast.com for everything related to the show. GabeDixon.com for his official website. @Gabe Dixon on Instagram. Definitely follow him if you're not already. Tedeschi Trucks Band.com is TTB's official website. Definitely buy tickets to shows, buy merch, support the band, join the Swamp Family Fan Club, download the app, do all that. But again, thank you, Gabe. Thank you to the band. Thank you, TTB, the crew, the fans, podcast supporters, past guests, everyone. It's been a lot of fun. Looking forward to Australia. Well, I'm not going, but I'm looking forward to hopefully hearing some music that comes out of that, because that's where the band is, of course, headed next. But again, thank you. That's about all I got for today. Appreciate everyone listening, and let's talk soon.